They're making a off topic. They're making a. I just read they're making a movie. They're making a narrative movie about the Capitol riots. The director of Don't Look Up. What's his name, Jess?
Adam McKay.
Okay. Thoughts on this? Who's the good guy? Who's the bad guy? How do you even?
I think it'll be good, but I think it's gonna piss a lot of people off because he's very good at taking something real and making it a joke, but in a realistic way too. Like Don't Look Up, basically.
I guess if he does it in that way, where it's I don't know, bro. It's like so old to just
here's
goof on these people. It's like
the thing. I think he could do is similar, which, like I think you said earlier, you didn't watch The Big Short, but in that there's not really like good guys. There's like a guy who notices a problem, and then the narrative follows around a bunch of people who are either trying actively to profit off of the issues or just are completely oblivious to it. Like it's not. So I don't think you need like heroes and stuff like that. I think you could tell a compelling story about, because a lot of the people who were involved were duped. They weren't like, there wasn't a grand military strategy behind most of the people, but you look at shit like the Oath Keepers and like Proud Boys and shit, a lot of them did go in with like the intention of doing some shit. It's like they showed up in military style, had like headsets and shit on, like giving like orders and stuff, like, oh, we're gonna assume this formation to get through the barricades and stuff like that. So there is like, as much as the media that we get to see often is like the more extravagant people looking like that fucking dude in the headdress and face paint and shit. He's plastered all over it. But there's so many people that straight up were part of militias and shit that were also actively storming it. And what I also don't see a lot, and this is now off topic of the movie, but I feel like I just always like to talk about it, is there was fucking pipe bombs to the east and west, I believe, of the Capitol.
I read that
were happening, that were like being investigated as the shit was going down. Like that's part of the reason why they had such a small police force present, is because it's the same police. That. Yeah, it's the same police. It's still Capitol Police. It was near enough that Capitol Police went to investigate.
And I would just like to say that that's a terrorist tactic to create a distraction.
Yeah, like
totally is.
No, that's what I'm saying. Like it's a lot of, but there's a lot of like narrative, like, oh, like especially in more conservative media, is like, oh, these people were barely anything more disturbing than tourists. But it's like, well, 4 people died, and a lot of cops that were like there have like blatant trauma on like the event.
Yeah. So like, and that's why I think this is going to piss a lot of people off, because it's going to be a comedy. There's no way it's not going to be a comedy.
I worry about the like people died on both sides. Like, I don't know how families of those people would feel about it. But
the thing is, people died with The Big Short too. Like a ton of people killed themselves because of what happened in 2008. Like it was a serious thing. And he did a great job on that movie, but Capitol Riots was kind of too soon. But it'll be, I think it'll be a good movie, because he doesn't really miss.
I mean, too soon. If it comes out 3 years from now, we're going to look back at it like, LOL, remember that? People with masks? The fuck was that about?
They weren't wearing masks, Eric. That's why a lot of them were able to be identified.
Well, no, a lot of them went in with their guards, their little
their QAnon face masks,
their face guards. Yeah.
No, like it's amazing how, and like I said, because we're speculating about a movie that's probably not going to come out for another year at the quickest, because it's probably pre-production at this point, and then probably closer to 2 or 3. But there were so many people, like there was famous live streamers and stuff there. There was like so many people with their phones out, not masked up. Like obviously there's mad security cameras. It's like one of the most well filmed crimes in all of history. Like half of it has like 4K footage of all these people doing all this shit. And it's somehow, despite all of this, there's still like a moderately successful media narrative of like, oh, it was tame. It was like,
I mean, to be perfectly honest, like I don't know what I was doing that day or that week, but like I didn't see the big deal until, like a week and a half later when everyone was like, bro, what the fuck went on over there? And then like people died and like all this other shit.
So you just didn't see the big deal of people being like, we don't like the results of the election. Well, no, we will invade the Capitol to make sure our guy that Eric's just like a soft coup. I don't see a problem with that. I don't see a problem with a mob of people angry about like an election.
No, I understood that part, but like we had already seen a mob of people for like 2 years prior to that. So I was like, okay, now another mob.
That was,
I know it's a completely different reason. I get it, but
also just protesting versus invading the fucking Capitol.
Like, and it's also what you're protesting versus what they're protesting. It's like, okay, your shit is an actual problem that the country is dealing with, and the other is something that doesn't exist.
But really, we don't have to worry about it because it was all just left-wing propagandists, trauma actors, or whatever the fuck they.
Yeah, exactly.
Crisis actors.
That's what this podcast is. We're actually
we're all crisis actors.
We're not actually a podcast. We're just here to.
We're paid by Joe Biden to talk about movies and occasionally.
Not Joe Biden. We're paid by what's the guy's name? What's the?
Oh yeah, I wrote a song about him and the Antifa bus.
Who's the guy that they think is funding Black Lives Matter?
Let me see if that guy.
What?
Let me see if I can find. There's like one specific person.
Yeah,
it's an older Jewish man who survived the Holocaust, and he's also a billionaire. So it's not like he's perfect, but
I'm sure he's not a great person.
Yeah, but it's they've attached every problem to like, oh, this is funded by. I wish funded by who? I'm so close.
I haven't heard his name in so long that it's not. Please figure it out.
Well, that's it. Now that it's
in your head. Just type in Black Lives Matter is funded by, and then it'll pop up on your thing.
Dude, Adam McKay.
George Soros. Yeah.
Hold for Everything podcast.